nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
You know, when you first go through the interview process, you are kind of looking at some of the bigger decisions, some of the pending free agents, or even the quarterback. So you don't really get to really dig into the depth of some of the young guys and things like that. And that's probably my favorite part of the job. You know, my original background was kind of the analytics person, right? And so trying to find sleepers and things like that. So there's always some part of me that loves seeing that untapped potential. And so you go towards the back of the roster now as I really have to get familiar with the roster, and you get excited about some of the young guys we have and their potential going forward. And, you know, obviously there's guys that didn't play last year and things like that. So when you're trying to put together the vision for the team, you really want to be particular about what guys have a probability, some chance of making that next jump, and maybe giving that opportunity to do that, and maybe using your assets for a different position.
Oh man, that was Kwesi, the new Vikings general manager, previewing the NFL Combine. And translation there, at least the first 10 seconds of that quote. You think I've looked at the back of the roster? You think I know who Cam Bynum and Wyatt Davis are? I'm focused on one thing, and that is the $45 million cap hit for this quarterback. That's the only thing I've been able to focus on. And Danielle Hunter and that massive roster bonus that's staring us in the face in 2 weeks. But please tell me more about the seventh-round picks that I could be.
Let's talk practice squad, Kwesi. Let's talk practice squad players. What do you think about your practice squad? I thought it was really good.
This is Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. The show is presented by our friends at Surly Brewing Company and TCL, delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL's new lineup of award-winning TVs. Happy NFL Combine Week, gentlemen. That's right. The Combine is here. And I think a lot of people maybe misconstrue the Combine as, my fandom only goes so far. Like, once the Super Bowl's over, I don't really care about, sixth-round picks running around in shorts being timed in their 40-yard dashes. And that definitely is a big chunk of the NFL Combine. But the bigger chunk is, as Judd can attest to, having covered the Combine multiple times before, executives, agents, tipping a couple cocktails back, dinners, talking hypotheticals about trade, free agent tampering.
Shrimp cocktails.
I love shrimp. I'm not a shrimp cocktail guy. I don't
St.
like
Elmo's
cocktail sauce.
Shrimp cocktails are
I love shrimp.
Die for.
And just like Bubba Gunn, I love it all. I like it cooked, I like it raw, I like it fried, I liked all of it.
But you don't like
cocktail sauce.
Like the sauce?
I don't like the sauce.
The good sauce, though? Like, we're talking good sauce here. Because, there's cheap
you eat cold shrimp plain?
Yes, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
No
really?
problem.
Oh, that's
Both
good.
you guys.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
no problem.
Oh, yeah.
Cold shrimp.
Oh, yeah.
There's no taste to it.
I like to dip it, but, yeah, I'm fine with not dipping it.
Wow, okay. What about ketchup? Do you ever dip your shrimp in ketchup?
God.
Mr. Ketchup
Oh, I
guy?
would. Oh, I would. I don't, but I would.
Cold shrimp
It doesn't.
and
Ketchup doesn't bother me on anything. I used to think ketchup on eggs was gross. It doesn't bother me.
Ugh.
Okay, I saw
That's a
Judd put
favorite for some
ketchup
people.
on a chicken Caesar salad wrap one time.
He talks about it like
nothing
it was,
is sacred. It's
like
disgusting.
he saw a man on the moon. I mean, come on. It was a chicken Caesar wrap. What's the difference?
Blast ketchup into the sun. Let's eliminate this from our condiments.
No.
Get it out.
And good shrimp cocktail sauce, though, is yummy.
All right.
All right, let's get back to the subject at hand.
This is the start of really the lead up to free agency, the lead up to contract decisions, and this is the week in Indianapolis where front offices and agents and players start to formulate plans for what's about to happen. And so if you're the Vikings, you're Kwesi, you're Kevin O'Connell, the biggest decision you have is what to do with Kirk Cousins. Do you keep him? Do you trade him? Do you extend him? There's a number of different doors you could walk through. I'm sure you're incorporating as much information as you can possibly gather. There's information from Kevin O'Connell having worked hands-on with Kirk in Washington. There are, I'm sure, data points that can be pulled statistically, analytically, that Kwesi can tap into. And then there's the opinions of people that have been around the last few years, even after Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer got fired. And they're soaking all the information in from all these different angles. And I think this piece from The Athletic today in Chad Graff, I'm going to read you guys a few paragraphs here about the end of Mike Zimmer's run and how he and some of the coaching staff felt about the most important player on the roster, Kirk Cousins. And then you guys tell me if this matters or if it's just cancerous Mike Zimmer. It's just Mike Zimmer, belligerently bashing Cousins on the way out, or does this matter? Mike Zimmer spent part of his last few weeks as Vikings head coach bemoaning the team's situation at quarterback. The veteran defensive guru had made more of an effort to get the best out of Kirk Cousins in 2021, conducting weekly meetings with the quarterback for the first time in their 4 years together. But toward the end, it became clear to those within the building that the head coach-quarterback relationship had not blossomed the way that many hoped it would, according to sources. Zimmer complained openly in coaching meetings about Cousins, and some of Zimmer's top assistants echoed the sentiments. You had Zimmer and assistants in meetings behind the scenes basically saying, can't do it with this guy. Can't work with this guy.
Yep.
Zimmer didn't feel the quarterback made enough, quote, winning plays, that he didn't take the necessary shots to help the Vikings to victory all the time, and that he didn't elevate his teammates, talking about Kirk Cousins. But that view wasn't shared by everyone. Some, specifically in the front office, thought Zimmer didn't handle the situation well. They acknowledged to Zimmer that Cousins isn't a perfect quarterback, but felt that Zimmer's job as a head coach was to get the most out of the quarterback, and undercutting his play in meetings didn't help. Mm-hmm. The failed relationship between Zimmer and Cousins underscores a troubling point that the Vikings will have to grapple with under a new regime. Cousins has had two head coaches, in his 7 years as a starting quarterback, and both coaches, meaning Jay Gruden and Mike Zimmer, left convinced that they couldn't win big with him at the helm. Now the attention turns to O'Connell. What do you make of this?
First of all, I think that what you said at the outset before you read the quote can be very true. Dating to 2018, Mike had said, don't do this. And so it was the fact that he didn't meet consistently or pretty much at all with Kirk until this season was a self-fulfilling prophecy of the failure that was destined. Like, Mike looked at this in 2018 and said, this is a terrible idea. And I'm sure he talked to Jay because Jay Gruden was the OC in Cincinnati when Mike was the DC there, correct? Yeah. So, they were probably, if not friends, friendly. And so I believe that there is no question that Mike Zimmer bears real responsibility in the fact that this did not work from the aspect of to his last day here. He was moaning and groaning about, well, he doesn't make winning plays. But that doesn't mean he's not right. And here's the thing that I will always go back to, and this is where Mike and the assistants who focused on this are absolutely correct. Kirk Cousins, in his career, has not made enough consistently winning plays. Now, what does that mean? Because you can come back at me and say, oh, Judd, come on. What's he supposed to do? He can't. It's not his fault, blah, blah, blah. For instance, I will give you a winning play that's not an actual play. Calling a timeout when you should, instead of saying, I don't call the timeouts here. That's a ridiculous, at Kirk's age and experience and pay scale, that is a ridiculous statement. That is a losing play. That's a play where everybody from Zimmer on down to the equipment guy is like, hold on a second here. We had to get a timeout and you wouldn't do it because you weren't empowered to. And so in that case, Mike was right. So the question is this, and I believe the answer is no, but we'll find out. Can Kevin O'Connell empower Kirk enough, and is there enough hand-holding and meeting and propping up of Kirk that can be done to get him to make decisions and plays, because both at his position are vital, that are going to turn into winning decisions and plays? I believe the answer to the question is no. Kevin O'Connell is going to say, you're wrong, Judd. I'm right. I can do that. But I think with what Graff has, Phil, that you just read in that story, it's not like this changed my thought process and okay, Mike's at fault now, or no, Kirk is. It basically just continues to confirm what the issues between those two and with Kirk will continue to be. Mm-hmm. And can O'Connell change that? I have serious, serious doubts that he can.
This is so fascinating. I think this is the thing that worries me the most on behalf of the Vikings. And let me back up a step. I know a lot of people are going to hear this stuff that Chad Graff is reporting, and they're just going to dismiss it out of hand because, well, Mike Zimmer is just, by the end, he was just lashing out, and maybe he should spend more time focusing on his crumbling defense, right? And yes, those are two valid counter arguments. His defense had eroded, and he was kind of lashing out at the end. It doesn't mean that he's wrong, though. I think people want to put this into a black and white thing. Well, Mike Zimmer was a cancer, and Mike Zimmer had a leaky defense, and therefore nothing he says is credible, right? This is a huge gray area in which I think multiple things can be true. Mike Zimmer lost his fastball defensively. Mike Zimmer lost connection with key players in that locker room. And Mike Zimmer presided over a culture of fear, as Eric Kendricks put it. And I'll also throw another item in that bin. Mike Zimmer was not great at building a relationship with Kirk Cousins over the last 4 years. And this is where we move from speculation into, I'm gonna say some information from the inside, people that know. Or I'm gonna float something out here. A couple things. I have heard from people that are close to Kirk Cousins that he's not a guy that builds great relationships with teammates. He's not like a hang with the boys kind of a guy. I have heard. I'm gonna read you something that someone sent me here, close to the situation, late last week. People need to understand that this is about value. And Kirk Cousins, even if he is better than Case Keenum, he's not $35 million a year better than Case Keenum. It's about value in a salary cap system. It's all value. And when your leader isn't a leader and he's expensive, it makes it tough. So there are people in the know behind the scenes that are saying similar things that Mike Zimmer's saying. No one's saying he's garbage. No one is saying that he's terrible. No one's saying that he's a cancer or that his teammates hate him. They're saying when you're trying to build a team that aspires to win a Super Bowl, that his personality and his, let's just say, lack of intangibles, coupled with making that much money, essentially cap your team's upside at like 9 or 10 wins and a second-round playoff trouncing. But there's a lot of franchises that would love to sort of be at that level, right, where you're winning 9 or 10 games, you're getting to the first round of the playoffs once every 3 years or so, and you're giving yourself a chance to compete. It's risky to move off that in the eyes of the Vikings ownership. So this is, again, Mike Zimmer lost a lot of credibility. Is he wrong? Him and his assistants that felt this way? I don't think so. I'm hearing similar things in my conversations with people as well. So and that leads us to this line in the article where it says, now all the attention turns to Kevin O'Connell. So do you want to take this whole stew, the finances part of it, the sort of leadership and intangibles part of it, and then the fact that, as Jay Gruden will attest and Mike Zimmer will attest, that Cousins' stats don't always benefit the team. Cousins' stats benefit him and his passer rating, right? When he chooses to throw a pass 5 yards instead of forcing a ball 15 or 20 yards, a completion helps your passer rating, right? Like, that's what Jay Gruden has complained about. That's what Mike Zimmer has complained about, that he's in it for Kirk financially. He's in it for Kirk statistically. Can Kevin O'Connell fix and change these things? That's a lot to ask, because if Kevin O'Connell if he can quiet the mind of Cousins, if he can get Cousins to be more aggressive in tight windows and do the things that Matthew Stafford does and some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, then couldn't you also make the argument that there are cheaper options out there that he could also mold? And people are going to kill me for this, but Jimmy Garoppolo is cheaper than Kirk Cousins. If Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer and he's going to get the best version out of Kirk Cousins, couldn't he do the same for Carson Wentz? Couldn't he do the same for a former number 2 overall pick, Marcus Mariota, who also went to the playoffs, won 9 games, more mobile than Cousins? I'm just saying, like, if all of this is on Kevin O'Connell to take Kirk to the next level, then couldn't you do that with a handful of other guys or a rookie that you draft for a lot less money, and maybe guys bring some different intangibles that are better than Cousins? That's the discussion they're going to be having over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
And if I'm Kwesi, my desire is not to focus on individual players who I pay and like, oh, my quarterback's great. My desire is to have a team that can win a ton of football games, win a Super Bowl potentially. Mm-hmm. And the issue, I feel like we sometimes, and this is where it just gets really murky with Kirk. I feel like sometimes we carry on these discussions as if Kirk has been to multiple conference championship games. And it's like, okay, you just got to there's just that last hump there. If you get past that last hump, He hasn't. He barely has qualified for the playoffs. So you're a long ways away paying him what you are. And look, go back to Washington franchised him twice. So his contract there was huge as well. They franchised him twice, and they didn't have, and like you can say, well, but, it's not Kirk's fault. Okay, but it's his contract's fault. His contract is to blame. Like that's not a debate. That's not a debatable, well, just build up the rest of the team, but I can't because of his contract. And so Kwesi and O'Connell, and Kwesi especially, are supposed to be very smart, savvy thinking people. If they are, they realize this puzzle doesn't work. So if O'Connell comes in here now, like let's say O'Connell gets maximum from Kirk, everything. He steps in and he leads. He steps in and he wins more games. The box scores are still awesome. Everything is max Kirk. So he's turned up to a 10. You turn the volume up to a 10 on Kirk. The question's very simple. Okay, that's cool. That's awesome. How far do you go? Because if the question is, well, I got to a second-round playoff game, or hell, I got to a conference championship game, and then I got waxed because my defense had deficiencies because of Kirk partially. My offensive line got its ass kicked, and Kirk can't overcome that like Joe Burrow did, at least until the Super Bowl. So, this is where I feel like the conversations that the Vikings have to have internally are those, which is not like the personality of, well, I don't like Kirk, or which is I would talk about as well. But I think the most important thing is if we take this current Vikings roster and take it to a 10 at every position. So everyone, and this is pie in the sky, but let's just say for a second, everybody is clicking on all cylinders. How far can you potentially go given the fact that you still have areas of deficiency that flat out cannot be addressed because of Kirk and other players and the salaries that they are commanding? I think that is like the baseline conversation. Strip out the human part and let's just go with physical attributes part.
Yeah, I'll give you another just data point here to the point you're making about roster construction. So no quarterback, or I should say no team, has ever won the Super Bowl with a quarterback making more than 12.5% of the team's salary cap. And right now that cap hit is around 20 or 23%. So they're like twice as much percentage-wise as any quarterback has ever been to win a Super Bowl, going back 30-plus years, back to when modern NFL free agency became a thing. So even if you bring it down, you'd have to bring it down to $25 million. You'd have to almost cut his current cap hit in half and then shove money into the future to bring it under that 13% threshold. So I guess my question is, if he's going to be over that threshold, do you really believe that Kirk Cousins is going to be the first quarterback to buck that trend? Is he going to be the one that you can, all right, he's the example that you can build a team despite that bloated contract that can win a Super Bowl? And people sit here and they're going to keep ripping, they're going to rip the other 70, 80% of the expenditure, right? They're going to say, well, it's the front office's job to fix the offensive line and fix the defense and get some skill position players and keep everyone happy and under the salary cap. Well, it makes it a hell of a lot harder unless your quarterback wants to play ball. And so I guess my final thought here, and I'll shut up about this for today anyways, is the only conversation I am interested in with Kirk Cousins is a massive, massive step in the Vikings' direction to make that contract work. If his agent this week at the Combine, in your discussions over cocktails, over Manhattans in Indianapolis, if they play hardball
pretty drunk.
Get a couple stiff ones in you. If he plays hardball at all with that contract, I say, thank you, bleep you, we're trading you. Period. I trade him anyways, but I'm saying on behalf of Kwesi, if they have no intention of making things work for the Vikings and they only want to make things work for Kirk, I'm done. I walk away from the table and I trade him in the next 2 weeks.
What if he says, okay, that's cool, but I'm not going to do an extension with the team I'm traded to, and that causes that team to balk?
So you're saying not only will I not play ball with you,
he's eliminated himself from. Correct. I want my money. I want it from you, and I am and trade me.
I would release him.
Woo, really interesting.
So hold on, just to be clear, You're
Yeah.
painting the scenario you're painting is
Yeah.
all right. Conversation one is, hey Kirk, we want to extend you so we can smooth this cap hit out, but
Gotta
you
bring it
have
down,
to
though.
you got to play ball with us, dude. Like
Right.
we can't
So
pay
it-
you like Patrick Mahomes. You're not Josh Allen. We like
Correct.
you, but you got to be reasonable here. And he says, no, I want $40+ million. Okay, then we're going to have to trade you. And for that to happen, you're going to have to play ball with another team because
Yes.
no one's just going to trade for you for 1 year and a $35 million hit. Like they're going to want some reassurances that you're going to be there for a couple years, right?
Yeah,
He
let's
says,
just say that.
no. Bye, dude. Sorry. Give me the $35 million in cap savings and let me move on with my life. The Vikings are in football purgatory. They're in cap hell. They're in 7, 8, 9 win jail every single year. It's time to move forward. If you can get a first-round pick, awesome. If you can get him to come way down on the contract and that's what you believe can work going forward with Kevin O'Connell, awesome.
Yep.
You have to, those are the only two ways to move forward. Either you trade him, say goodbye to him, or you get him to come way in your direction to help the team and the franchise win a Super Bowl. Yep. And if he's not interested in doing that, then, dude, I'm sorry, but, we got to move on with the franchise.
So
I'm not going to have you hold us up for $45 million this year.
I think to go back to your point from, I think it was last week, Phil, I think what they could do, and because I don't think they would outright release him, I think that they would put a voidable year and try and smooth it out, but they wouldn't change his contract.
Would he have to agree to the voidable year, or could you do that without his permission? We need a capologist.
I think you can do that. I think that's a restructure. So I think that you could, like he might balk too. I don't know.
He still gets his money. This is about,
but he's going to get his money. But but you don't. But in the conversation that we're having right now about the potential for his future, you don't extend him. So he's going to be gone then, but you're just trying. But basically what you're doing is you're shoving some of the cap hit into 23 when he's gone. Because I don't think they're going to release him. I think that they would trade him, but he could say, he is when it comes to contract negotiations, make no mistake, Kirk Cousins is a pain in the ass on purpose. He wants to be. So I think that what you have to look at here too, to broaden this entire conversation out, is a lot of players. And Kirk is among them. And I am not looking at any player that you currently are paying as a must-have. So if Daniil comes back and it's no, I want to play hardball, I'll be no, dude, sorry. Now, I like him a lot. And I do think that they're going to restructure his contract, which can be done, and I think he stays. But if I'm Kwesi, I am looking far more at things like Justin Jefferson, who can get a huge extension a year from May, and that's a done deal. So when it comes to Thielen, Cousins, Hunter, Cook, go down Smith, that's a list of guys who potentially, under the right circumstances and terms, can stay. But that being said, the deals are going to have to favor me, not you, because you are part of the process, but you are no longer the most important parts. Those are the up-and-coming guys like Justin Jefferson.
You got when I said what I said, which is you put me in. I don't think the scenario you painted is going to happen. I think he would, if Indianapolis, and we'll get to some of the updates here from the weekend. If Indianapolis said, hey, we'd really just like someone who's not going to throw a blind interception from the end zone to be our quarterback.
Left-handed.
Yeah, so just bring a little bit more risk management to our business. Which, by the way, that's what Federated does. Federated brings risk management to the table.
And they're good at it.
Yeah, they're about maximizing the success of your business at Federated. And you can tap into a whole plethora of resources, tools, and people that can help your business at federatedinsurance.com. Federated, where it's our business to protect yours. I don't think the scenario you painted is going to happen where he just won't play ball with anyone. I think
Sure.
He'll play ball with someone, whether it's the Vikings or the Colts or somebody else.
Sure.
But you guys, when I said then I would, if you painted me in that corner and he is unwilling to play ball with someone else, which basically acts as a no trade clause, and he won't play ball with the Vikings, he is then pulling the pin on a franchise grenade and rolling it into your roster. He is now saying, I'm not going to do anything to help you, so you're going to have to go to my teammates. You're going to have to go to my teammates and restructure them or cut them.
Correct.
Now it's cancerous. And so from that point, like you guys were kind of shocked when I said what I said. It is not a huge loss to move on from Kirk Cousins. People this is what people need to understand. You're not going from 13 wins to 6. You're not going from 12 wins annually and division championships. Now, the Packers trying to figure out life after Rodgers despite the playoff failures, that's a big decision. 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterbacks that carry that franchise to 12, 13 wins every single year. NFC championship games. A Super Bowl 10 years ago, right? Brett Favre, Super Bowl in the 90s. Like, that's a big decision. Moving on from a gravitational pull quarterback to 500 is not a big decision. The Vikings have won divisions they've won 10 games and gone to the playoffs and or divisions with Tavares Jackson, Christian Ponder, Teddy Bridgewater. Case Keenum was the quarterback in an NFC championship year.
Yep.
Like, I do not fear the unknown at quarterback because it's all I have known as a fan and follower of this team since 1985. Moving on from Kirk Cousins does not scare me in the way that it scares other fans for some reason. And stability is one thing, but when stability is just bogging you down to 7 and 8 and 9 wins every year, that's not good stability. That's complacency. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Like, I don't have a fear of just getting nothing and moving on. I want the money back. Give me $35 million so I can get a center and a guard and a starting cornerback, and let me start over at that position and watch the Vikings still compete for a 7, 8, 9 win season. Watch what happens. Oh, you better be careful. Be careful of what, dude? They won 10 games per year in the 4 years before Kirk Cousins. They went to an NFC championship game with a backup quarterback because they could build out the rest of their roster. It's not like a risk to move on from Kirk Cousins. He's not Tom Brady. I'm sorry.
It doesn't scare me. I don't think the Wilfs would allow them to outright release him. I think if Kwesi comes to the Wilfs and says, let me do it, they should say yes. They should say yes. But these guys they're sort of weird at times. So I think that's the one. If you came to them and said, I can get a first-round pick, I think Kirk's gone. If you come to him and say he's pissing us off, he's selfish, he's sort of a malcontent, I know enough now, I don't know that they would say, okay, that's fine. I'm trying to figure out, because this franchise is so weird at times. I'm trying to deduct who's going to be allowed to do what. I believe that Kwesi should be allowed to do what he wants, for sure. I just don't know if releasing Kirk would be in the cards yet. It should be. It 1,000%. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to meet in the next week at the Combine, and I'm pretty confident that the Kirk camp is going to say, let's do an extension. Let's start at $40 million for 2023.
I'm sure they've had some feeler discussions. I don't know for sure, but I'm educated guess, pretty certain that they've at least had some exploratory discussions.
Oh, sure.
But to your point, the real discussions are always like, all right, it's Combine time. Now this is where we get face-to-face time.
The league year's approaching.
Yep.
Cap compliance is necessary. Absolutely.
So over the last month, you've heard Kwesi and O'Connell and Wes Phillips, the new offensive coordinator, talk glowingly. For the most part, there's been a little hesitation with some of the comments KOC made with Chad Hartman last week. Well, still a long ways to go until training camp to talk about anyone who may or may not be on the roster. It's like, well, that's an interesting way to spin it. But if the Vikings and Cousins representatives sit down face-to-face at the Combine this week, and Cousins representatives say, hey, my guy wants to play for the Vikings and finish the rest of his career in Minnesota. All right, that sounds great. Cool. Yeah, well, what are we thinking? He wants to be one of the 3 highest paid quarterbacks. He's looking at that Josh Allen contract, average annual value, and that Patrick Mahomes contract. And he wants the same, especially with the cap going up. He might want even more, quite frankly, because the cap's going to go up so much in the next 2 or 3 years. So he's going to want a significant chunk of change. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, listen, that's going to be really tough because we already have salary cap problems, and it's really hard to justify paying that much money. Well, it's your job to figure out the cap. This is my client's market value. If that's where the conversation goes, and the reason why we haven't heard more steam, I think, nationally is because to this point, they haven't reached some sort of fork in the road contractually in their conversations.
But rest assured, yeah.
It's coming at some point, unless Kirk plays ball. If he says cool, or unless the Vikings are willing to tack on a void year or two and push his money into the future, even if he's not playing here. Which again, I don't know. Do you want to tack up like tens of millions of dollars in voided money on an extension into future seasons? Your first time as a general manager.
Here's what I would do.
None of this adds up to this point, and I'm so curious to see what happens in the next 2 weeks.
I would let it. It would be extremely detrimental to the immediate future, but I would let 2022 and Kirk's contract ride. I'd let him play on it. And I would cut guys around him and make it known, at least through my national sources, that guys are being cut because of Kirk's contract is causing me to have to let go.
But now you're like in sabotage, vindictive mode in your first year as a general manager while trying to set a culture that's different than that.
I agree, but the nice thing is I'm releasing veterans, and Kirk is my shield, and I like that part. Because I'm going to let those guys go soon regardless. So basically, Kirk is deciding then to expedite the exit of his supposed friends. Because, look, business-wise, I mean, I think the culture is extremely important, but the culture is going to be new. So it's not going to be ultimately built around Smith and Thielen and Cook. And so it's ultimately going to be built around Jefferson and new players, right? So if Kirk says, sorry, guys, I am due a $45 million cap hit, and that's my cap hit, I'd say, okay, that's fine. But meanwhile, too, if I tear it down, which eventually I'm going to have to, the great thing is all of the Cousins Crusaders who were like, Kirk needs more help, what are you doing? I'd be like, I know, I agree with you.
And see, this is where you and I totally disagree. I think letting him play for $45 million on a cap hit this year is worse than cutting him. And again, I don't think it's going to get to that point. I think you're either going to extend him or trade him.
I agree with you. I agree with what you just said.
Why would you want to push forward and have this sort of like if you keep him on a $45 million cap hit and you're already $15 million over the cap,
yes,
then you have to cut from a roster that missed the playoffs last year.
Yes,
like they would be screwed in 2022.
Exactly.
And so you would be just like riding this plane from the sky into the ground.
Correct.
And that's so toxic in your first year. Why not just move on from it? Why not just instead of crashing the plane over the course of a year? Why not just this isn't what we really wanted to do, but we can't. Like he is not collaborating with us.
Right. But if the Wilfs tell me I can't, if the Wilfs are like, you cannot cut Kirk, I would say, okay, it's got to come from somewhere.
I mean,
and I'm allowed to crash the plane completely to build it back up. I am allowed to do that. That's what I love. Did we just
land this plane on the Hudson here?
Fabricate a situation here, like?
Well, he's got him, Phil.
But what do people think is going to happen, dude? Like the amount of people that are just like, you guys are making all this stuff up. Like, are we nuts?
No,
there's
conversations.
A huge fork in the road here in the next 2 weeks, and people are like, "You guys are just dramatic." No,
we are 1,000. We are 1,000% correct. What we don't know, and what we're doing, is going through the different potential permeations of what might happen.
Dex is going to clip something so out of context for social media and just burn us, right? I don't know what's going to go out later on Score.
You think I care?
But it's going to
be retweet that sucker.
It's going to be something like Mackey wants Vikings to release Kirk Cousins or something.
You think that's not coming out today?
Dude, there's a note, and it's in Hammerhead Graham on my prep sheet, and I have a timestamp that says Mackey rant. And so yes, that's a little sneak peek. What do you do behind the scenes, Declan? That is exactly what I do. I look to make clickbait articles to get people talking.
Vikings have to release Mackey Vikings have to release Cousins.
Yeah.
God, I love how you operate.
There's no way in hell though they release him. You're gonna like $45 million down they're not gonna do that.
But you just in this conversation, the way that it evolved, you gave two options, which is, all right, trades off the table because he won't extend with another team, and extensions off the table because he won't lower his cap hit. So he's forcing you into playing for $45 million or cutting him. And I'm saying I would rather cut him.
I see your point. I get your point. I just think that's the one thing that would shock me. A trade would not.
No.
Acrimony would not. If the Vikings put out a press release in, I don't know, take your pick, draft time or something, the Vikings have released quarterback Kirk Cousins, I would be floored.
Well, we should get into some of the other NFL quarterback carousel news that came out over the weekend here. As the NFL quarterback carousel turns, presented by our friends at Livia, as Judd's weight loss journey continues to turn.
That is exactly correct. My friends at Livia Weight Control Centers have helped me drop now. In fact, I went and weighed in at the Minnetonka location on Thursday, started around 240 pounds, now down to 204 pounds. That's right. It continues to work. And here's the best part, ladies and gentlemen, your first 8 weeks right now, free. So if you sign up right now, 8 weeks for free, in that time period, I lost 26 pounds. So imagine losing 26 pounds basically for free and finding out how great this program can be. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia.com, Livia, Livea.com, 855-GO-LIVEA, voted 2021's best weight loss program. Livia.com is for you, because it was for me, and if I can do it, you can do it.
You know, Chill Boys, not free, but very, very reasonably priced for the comfort that they provide you down there. What's one word to describe, Declan, how Chill Boys are making you feel today?
Reckless, but reckless in a good way, because it's reckless speculation week at the Combine, and I'm excited to get reckless. And whether I have my performance or bamboo fabric on, oh, baby, it's reckless speculation season up there and down there with my Chill Boys underwear.
I'd love to hear that.
Chill Boys, they care about one thing, your comfort, the most comfortable underwear that we have ever put on as a show here. Chillboys.com, a Minnesota-based company. You can find them online at chillboys.com. All right, boys, as the quarterback carousel turns around the National Football League, 3 interesting stories from the weekend. Let's start with, this one was a little bit more, I think, innocuous than the other two, but Russell Wilson late last week he took Seahawks references out of his profile avatar on Instagram, and if they were in his bio, they are no longer in his bio. Sure. And he put like a high school football photo of him. He has since, I think, people noticed and were wondering, oh, what's happening? He's scrubbing the Seahawks from his Instagram. He has now put a Seahawks photo back up there on this Monday. So Russell Wilson, I don't know what he's doing. If he's just
has this become the new thing too? Kyler did it. It feels like who did it last year? A guy or two did it last year.
Well, Stefan Diggs did it.
Yeah,
2 years ago.
But it feels like so. You go to your Insta, you take off your team's logos and pictures, right? And everyone, because it's fun, like us, freaks out. Oh my God, reckless speculation, this guy. And then you put him back up. I don't know what to make of this anymore.
Pretty innocuous, but there's the Russell Wilson rumors continue to turn.
Giants, man, he'd be great in New York.
They're so far gone, though. I mean, I think he'd be great for them because they need some saving, but I don't know. The Colts reportedly are almost certainly going to trade or release Carson Wentz. That's another one that came out. So he's 30 years old here this upcoming season. He's got a cap hit of $28 million. The Colts could save about $14 million in cap space by just releasing him. He has no guaranteed money left after 2022. He's got 2 years left at I don't know, $45 or $50 million or something, but no guaranteed money left after 2022. And then I'll throw this one out there and ask a couple. So Kyler Murray is the third nugget here as the NFL quarterback carousel turns. His agent sent a letter to the Cardinals that Adam Schefter published this morning through ESPN saying, basically, to sum it up, it's this really long, winding letter that says, my client absolutely wants to be here. He wants to help the Cardinals win a Super Bowl for the right price. And he kind of insinuated if my client doesn't get the right price this offseason, then he won't be the one that's helping the Cardinals to those playoff aspirations and Super Bowl aspirations. So let me throw this at you guys. People are going to kill me for this, but if Cousins refused to play ball and Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer, right? That's what we're all banking on here, that he can develop and do whatever he wants with Kirk Cousins' upside. Would you rather have Kirk Cousins, or would you rather have Carson Wentz and $10 extra million in free agency spending?
I loathe both of these quarterbacks.
Do I have to? Okay.
Huh?
Is Wentz on the end of his contract where I can just If I crash, I crash, and I don't care.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't want either one of them, to be honest with you. I mean, Carson
What if the
Wentz
Colts
is
kicked in a pick? What if the Colts said, listen.
Oh, if they attached a pick?
What if the Colts said, listen, we've kind of done this to ourselves. You all know we're desperate to get rid of Carson Wentz now. We all know his flaws. He also played pretty well at times last year too.
Yes.
But we got to get rid of this guy. So, hey, we'll give you – we're just looking for a little more stability at quarterback here, Vikings. So we'll give you Carson Wentz and we'll give you a third-round pick. You give us Kirk Cousins. You get 1 year of Carson Wentz at a $28 million cap hit, which would save you around like $8 million in cap space, and you'd get a mid-round pick and
what
flexibility.
What type of guy is Carson Wentz? Is he a good locker room guy / teammate?
I think for the most part, a little polarizing like Kirk with the vaccination status thing, but
yeah, that's true. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would ultimately take the pick and the player, but I don't put a lot of value in either one of those guys being ultimately successful, as the goal should be for the Vikings. But yeah, the pick would intrigue me. I'd like that to be, if I'm going to take Wentz, I would prefer a second or first round pick, but first round pick might be pie in the sky. I don't know. I am unthrilled with all of your options, but the pick does intrigue me at least. But I don't know. Carson Wentz does nothing for me.
Yeah, he does nothing. I'd rather roll with Kirk.
I'd rather take a chance on Baker.
Oh, yeah.
And
where's that
see if
scheme?
I can bleed the turnip.
That one's kind of
They claim they're going with him. Who knows? I'm telling you, that's why this week's so great. Like, this week's going to get
get drunk
rekindle the fires. It's like a smoldering, like for a month now, it's been smoldering, right? Mm-hmm. And like we talk about it, but it's like smoldering. It's like, I smell a fire, but I can't really place it. And the inferno starts in Indianapolis on Tuesday. That's what's going to make this week fun.
Well, this is, again, people are going to kill me for this, but Carson Wentz's peak is much higher than Kirk Cousins' peak. We saw it 4 years ago with the Eagles, where he was third in MVP voting, might have even been voted the MVP if not for the injury the last month of the season.
Right.
Now Carson Wentz's floor is much lower than Kirk Cousins' floor. He can sabotage a game or a season in a way that Kirk really hasn't to this point. But if you're telling me I get full flexibility to just do whatever I want at that position with no strings attached after 2022, but I get to test drive a former, number 2 overall pick, save cap space, and get a draft pick, I would go with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, but I think the test drive is done. I just think I mean, that guy that we saw back then looked like he had huge potential. But I mean, now that I know more about him and I've seen him since, I think I would prefer to test drive Baker.
Okay, what if the Colts what if the Colts kicked in a first round pick?
Then I do the deal.
Yeah.
If you give me a first round pick,
I'd potentially do it.
Actually, they had to give their first round pick.
I'm just saying the exchange of intangible garbage in, garbage out doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they trade their first round pick.
I need somebody, and that's where full disclosure here, Baker scares me too. I don't really see him as a great intangible. I mean, you need a court. It's a very, very tough job for a reason, right? Like, the person has to have skills. The person has to, but he also has to have intangibles that can lead, that can galvanize.
And if you don't have those things, that's fine. Whatever. We're not giving you 15 to 20% of the team's salary cap. It's so stupid.
I agree. I agree with you.
Teams do it, but that's the market going rate. That's fine. The market is skewed because of supply and demand. The market going rate for a quarterback doesn't equal the Super Bowl blueprint for a team and the construction. And those two things are not the same.
We talked about this a long time back, but perhaps one of the biggest flaws in all of sports right now, as far as pay scale goes, is the lack of a true middle class for that position.
Yep,
that's a huge problem.
Despite
someone's got to get that back.
There's a huge middle class of guys, right? Like Kirk's in it.
Yeah, Kirk's in the middle class.
Mariota's kind of in the bottom end of the middle class.
If you're not top 10, you are in that class. Mm-hmm. And yet we're paying you like you deserve a mansion.
Yeah. Yep. So there you have it.
I'm heated.
Why don't you cool down with a Surly? Maybe that's what you should do.
Oh, you know what? This week is great. I believe it was T.O. who once said, grab your popcorn. Well, forget that, folks.
Get your
because
popcorn ready.
Get your popcorn ready. Now, forget that, because the reckless speculation that comes with Combine Week begs for only one thing, and that is a can or 2 or 6 of Surly Brewing. And in my opinion, their finest. Surly Furious is it. I had a few on Saturday. Let me tell you, they were very delicious. And reckless speculation from the Combine and Surly Furious go together hand in hand. So forget grabbing your popcorn, grab your Surly at your local liquor store, bring it home, watch and listen to all of the Combine reckless speculation, and enjoy.
That's right. Also, hey, if you're into like Division I sports and stuff, hey, St. Thomas is Division I now in football, in basketball, and hockey. And if you ever want to go check out any of those athletic contests, TommySports.com is the place to go. TommySports.com. We had a mock draft on the docket for Mock Draft Monday here, but we'll push that.
Yeah, the pressure's on right now. Unchained guy outside.
I know.
Chopping at the bit to get in.
We gotta go.
All right. That's a wrap on Purple Daily. I'm headed out the rest of the week to a sports media summit out in New York. So I'm going to try and join you guys from like random hotels and hallways and things. But you guys,
that sounds seedy.
You guys have it held down here back at the ranch during one of the most fun.
Do a quarterback threat here.
Of the year.
You and I, we're doing a little dual quarterbackness here.
Oh,
little
I like
wildcat,
it.
Little
I like
single,
it.
little pistol,
Play action,
shotgun.
little play action.
Listen, if
All that.
I have to record takes like on my phone and just send them to you, then
Hey, no, you're out of pocket. You're out of pocket. Dex and I got this. The hot takes are just going to be spewing forward.
Talk to my agent.
We'll tell you. Okay, Kirk. Bye.
See you guys.